Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning for our latest installment of Groundwater Management Area 14 Joint Planning Committee. Today is April 9th, 2021, and it is 9:04 a.m. for the record. Like I said, appreciate y'all joining us here this morning. And because these meetings have a habit of dragging on sometimes, let's get it moving on. With no further ado, let's call the meeting to order and go to item 2, confirmation of receipt of posted notices. Can confirm I have received receipts of all the posted notices. So we're good to go there. Next item, welcome and introductions. I kind of already did a welcome, but welcome again, everybody. And I'll start off. John Martin, Southeast Texas Groundwater Conservation District, Jasper, Newton, Hardin, and Tyler counties. Why don't I pass it off to Miss Beverly next?
Beverly Hopkins, Brazoria County, GCD.
How about you, Miss Ritter?
Hi, Samantha Ryder, Montgomery County, Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District.
Mr. Ashmore.
Salutations, everyone. I babysit Polk County and San Jacinto County.
Mr. Holland.
Zach Holland with Bluebonnet Groundwater Conservation District, representing Austin, Grimes, Waller, and Walker counties.
Good morning, Zach. Mr. Wilcox, how are you today?
We're doing well. Clayton Wilcox from Chambers County.
Mr. Turco.
Mike Turco, General Manager, Harris Galveston Subsidence District.
Mr. Thompson.
Robert Thompson with the Fort Bend Subsidence District.
And I was just about to say that's it, but Kirk has disappeared from the screen. You out there, Kirk?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
And
Kirk
you represent
County.
There you go. Then we have our representative from the Water Development Board, Mr. Larry French. You with us, sir?
Yes, Larry French here with the Texas Water Development Board.
And lastly, but not leastly, how about Mr. Wade Oliver?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Wade Oliver with Intera.
Okay, that was pretty easy, huh, guys? Moving on to item number 4, which is public comments. I believe we have 4 people who have submitted speaker request forms, and let me get to them. Mr. Neil Gaynor. Are you with us this morning, sir?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Thank you, Chairman Martin, for the opportunity to speak during this GMA 14 Joint Planning Committee meeting. My name is Neil Gaynor, a resident of the Woodlands, and I will be offering my opinions on agenda item 8. We are all aware of the limitations of compaction modeling in the Jasper Aquifer, as summarized by the GMA 14 consultant at the GMA meeting on July 15, 2020. And I quote, "Compaction and subsidence can occur within the Jasper in the model, but its parameters were set so that it is minimal. With this revelation, one may conclude that this groundwater model is not reliable for estimating Jasper subsidence during the production forecast period. Nevertheless, that same model is being relied upon to justify DFCs as it is the only model available for use. We should keep in mind the well-known adage, all models are wrong, but some are useful. As regards modeling Jasper subsidence, parameters have been set to minimize it. It seems odd why this should be so. Subsidence was immediately reduced in the Woodlands following lower groundwater pumping rates in late 2015 and early 2016. Now, focusing on the Jasper Aquifer, water levels dropped about 100 feet onto the Woodlands during the drought of 2011. Those water levels did not recover until early 2016, after surface water was available. During that 5-year period, nearly 4 inches of subsidence was measured. This subsidence occurred at a time when the Evangeline aquifer water levels showed an overall rise. Although attribution of subsidence can be challenging, this information points to the sensitivity of jasper compaction to groundwater extraction. Given the DFCs proposed by the LSGCD, it is my view that the woodlands will be subject to an out-of-control experiment by the district. This test will be to, quote, provide us with the opportunity to discover whether subsidence is being caused by Montgomery County groundwater withdrawals, or if it is being caused by Harris County's wells, unquote. This verbatim statement comes from a member of the board of LSGCD. Would you like to be involuntary participants in such an experiment? I think not. I asked GMA 14 to defer approval of the DFCs proposed by LSGCD. Increased groundwater pumping adjacent to the woodlands will most likely cause harm to residents and property here. LSGCD should be asked to show no harm. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Mark Mitchell.
And I'm here this morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Excellent, excellent. Chairman Martin, thank you for working through my request form. Hopefully you could open the PNG as it was sent. My name is Mark Mitchell, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Partnership Lake Houston in our region, which encompasses portions of the city of Houston, the city of Humboldt, Generation Park Management District, and Harris County. And I'm not here today from necessarily a technical perspective. I'm more of a layman, if you will, in terms of the whole aspect of subsidence and regional flooding. But I will tell you that we're on the northeast side of Harris County, which was devastated during Hurricane Harvey. And so we've created significant groups in terms of disaster recovery, disaster resiliency. And I'm really here today to speak about item number 8 in our opposition to significantly increased pumping efforts of the Lone Star Groundwater Conservancy District, and also opposing removal of references to the subsidence in their plan. And from a bigger picture perspective, the state of Texas is spending billions of dollars to address and mitigate subsidence, but it's not spending these dollars to eliminate subsidence. It's just spending it to mitigate it. We're a coastal community. We fully understand that subsidence cannot be eliminated. We are not trying to prevent it. We are simply trying to mitigate it by following the facts that significantly increased pumping will speed up the subsidence process. The San Jacinto River watershed, as we've seen during Harvey and during various other flooding events, the Tax Day flood, Memorial Day flood, recent tropical storms, flash flooding, our area is significantly prone to flooding. And subsidence exacerbates this significantly. And so to the extent that we can look at the information as presented, we can't ignore this fact. And we must understand that increased subsidence plays a negative role in our region's quality of life. And with my role as Chief Economic Development Officer for Partnership Lake Houston, it makes my job more difficult because these businesses are looking at what we are doing, they are listening to what we are doing, and they are seeing what we are doing. So when they fly in and they ask us about what we're doing relative to flood mitigation, subsidence, they've done their homework. So this is not just about our region. This is about a national profile that we're setting forward. So I ask you to please consider these points as you exercise your due diligence in this pending vote, and I'll yield from there. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, sir. Next on the list, Mr. Rehat.
Mr. Martin, could you repeat that name for me, please?
Bob Rehak, Robert Rehak.
There we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Bob Rehak. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I host a website called reduceflooding.com. It has tens of thousands of readers in northern Harris and southern Montgomery counties. And I'm here to speak against the DFC statement adopted by Lone Star earlier this week. I've been following Lone Star's attempt to avoid any mention of subsidence in their DFCs for approximately more than a year now. Wednesday, they voted to virtually double their groundwater pumping, eliminate a subsidence metric in their DFCs, and treat subsidence as a PR problem. As someone who lives in the Lake Houston area near the Harris-Montgomery County line, I promise you that subsidence is far more than a PR problem. It's real and something my readers are very concerned about. If Lone Star is allowed to pump 115,000 acre-feet of water per year, your models show it will cause 3 feet of subsidence where I live, but only 1 foot at the Lake Houston Dam south of us. In other words, differential subsidence will tilt Lake Houston toward my neighborhood, bringing floodwaters 2 feet closer to our homes and businesses. As a result of Hurricane Harvey, the Lake Houston area suffered billions in damages. 13 people died, 16,000 homes and 3,300 businesses flooded. I-69 was knocked out for almost a year. Kingwood College lost 6 of 9 buildings. Kingwood High School flooded to the 2nd floor. Sewage treatment plants were submerged. Memorial Hermann's new hospital facility in Kingwood flooded 1 week before it was scheduled to open. And 44% of all businesses in the Lake Houston Chamber were flood damaged, including 100% of the businesses in Kingwood's town center, 2 miles from the West Fork. Damages like these cannot happen again, but if you allow Lone Star's DFCs to stand, that likelihood will increase, and the next Harvey will be even worse. Lone Star said it needed more time to meet with stakeholders about subsidence, but the reports in the board meeting last week never mentioned that from stakeholders. They said that stakeholders thought only that Lone Star's communications were lousy. I challenged Lone Star to state in this meeting whether any stakeholders mentioned it as a concern. And I would ask the rest of you to insist that Lone Star adds a subsidence metric and adopts pumping guidelines that encourage conversion to surface water in Montgomery County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next on the list, we have Miss Laura Norton.
Hi there. My name, yes, is Laura Norton, and I'm from South Montgomery County. Thank you for the time today. There was a time not long ago when Montgomery County voters voted to create a conservation district board. It was 2001. Those voters 20 years ago must have appreciated the value of managing the aquifers for all, not just a few. They recognized the value of not sinking their homes and causing irreversible subsidence and the flooding that results from it. Then in 2018, just 17 years later, many of the same voters elected a board that didn't care about any of this stuff. In an election, the board crushed the competition with a campaign slogan of restore affordable water. Having served on flood mitigation boards like One Water in the Woodlands, I appreciate that not managing the aquifers and the consequences that follow will be the most expensive, traumatic, and tragic route. I blame our incredible error of 2018 on the political tribalism of our politics now. Voters don't pay attention for more than a sentence. They fall for lies and even vote against their own best interest. I'm dedicated to making us smarter. I won't give up. I'm encouraged today by the last 3 commenters, and I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Norton. Looks like I got a little chat that popped up here. It says Mr. Sakara has raised his hand. Would Mr. Sakara like to make a comment?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, committee, giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Simon Cicada. I'm the CEO of Quadvest. I know this has been a long and arduous process for everyone, and we appreciate how hard everyone has worked on this issue. I'm sure everyone is tired of hearing me speak, so I'm just going to make a few short comments. I believe Montgomery County could live with a Run D DFC as long as there is no subsidence component attached to it. Quadvest believes this is a reasonable compromise. We would not seek an alternative remedy. Other districts in the GMA may decide they want a subsidence component. That's up to them. Lone Star should not be burdened by another district's management policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else like to make public comments this morning that did not submit a form? Any other raised hands?
Hello.
Hello?
Mr. Norton, I see that there is one, George Newsman.
Okay. Mr. Newsman, how are you this morning?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm George Newman. I'm a resident of the Woodlands in southern Montgomery County. And I had a couple of comments to make, and I appreciate y'all allowing me to add my comments here without giving advance notice. I watched the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District as they met on Wednesday and as they voted on a DFC that they'll present to you today. It does not include any limit for subsidence. The reasoning that I heard was that the board has no way to measure subsidence. It's not measurable. In my experience in industry, I found that if you have a critical measurement and you don't have the instrumentation needed to measure that critical variable, you go get it. I understand that that cost may be an issue for the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District, but there are other sources of money other than their own revenue. The MUDs here in the Woodlands have contributed to several water projects in the past, including a subsidence monitor down in the Grogan Mill area. So as in conclusion, I'd like to recommend that the GMA 14 board require a DFC that monitors or that includes a subsidence component. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other hands pop up out there?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. That being said, I will also note that there were quite a few emails that were received between the last meeting and this current meeting, encompassing both ends of the spectrum on this issue. And that being said, if no other hands has popped up, we will move along to our next item.
Mr. Martin,
yes.
Kirk, can we ask a question at this time, or is there another time to ask a question about this topic?
Which topic?
The public comments that were discussed on the actual desired future conditions by Lone Star. Is there going to be another opportunity to discuss that?
As I understand public comments are solely that. They're not meant to be a discussion point, but I've also heard recently that some folks are laxing on that. I personally think we should have it in a specific agenda, one of the agenda items to keep it nice and clear and clean cut. So if that's okay with you, we'll wait.
We understand.
Thank you, Kirk. So next item, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the January 20th, 2021 and February 24, 2021 GMA 14 Joint Planning Meeting minutes.
John, this is Gary. I'll make a motion, but I'll add to it also great thanks to Zach to keeping this straight.
Yeah. I was just about to go that way. These meetings are very document heavy. There's a lot of different people involved. These minutes are going 6, 7 to 8 pages long, and it's really difficult to keep track of. Zach's doing a wonderful, incredible job taking care of that for us because most people don't.
You got a future in court reporting, I would say.
John, I'll second Gary's motion and the sentiments and thanks to Zach.
That was motion to approve both in one motion. Gary?
I'm sorry, John, say it again.
That was a motion to approve both sets in one motion.
The minutes, both minutes.
Okie doke. We'll have a motion and a second. We'll go with the how many times can I say in 15 seconds? We'll go with D, unless there are any objections heard, we will assume the motion passes. Does anybody object to the motion to approve the minutes? Hearing no objections, the motion to pass the minutes is approved. Next item, agenda item 6, is update from the Texas Water Development Board and discussion of any related items of interest to the GMA 14. Mr. French, anything good going?
Yes, I have one item that I think would be of interest to the district representatives. Yesterday, our board met and released the draft 2022 state water plan for public comment. So that plan is now available to you and the public to review and to look at. The public comment period will end on May 26th, and there is a public hearing scheduled here in Austin on May 24th. So if you would want to be in person to provide comments, that's an opportunity, or you can provide written comments on the plan. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that if you're interested in reviewing and making comments on the state water plan. And that's pretty much what I have for this morning.
Mr. French, it's on the website for us to read, the water board website.
Yes, forgot to mention that. Yes, you can go to our agency website and it's pretty clearly marked that you can see it there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Well, we're kind of chugging along here today. Next, we will convene as a meeting of the GMA 14 Joint Planning Interlocal Agreement participants. 28. Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action regarding the DFCs and the path forward for GMA 14 to accomplish statutory mandates for round 3 joint planning. Kirk, would this be a good place to answer your questions? You with us, Kirk?
Okay, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess what I'm wanting to ask are questions that you guys probably all know full well the answers to, because y'all are way more involved in this than I am, and I'm kind of just wanting to make sure I have my head clear of where we're at. So Lone Star sent us the resolution that was proposed for future desired conditions as what they would like to see the GMA 14 allow them. I don't understand why we would have to vote differently is my question. And if we do vote differently, is there some kind of legal action that is required for Lone Star to do as they wish for their district? I guess I don't understand enough about how that works. If the GMA 14 approves the desired future conditions to include subsidence, and Lone Star chooses not to do that, is that something that Lone Star has the full authority to do, is my question, I guess. Or is that a lawyer question?
I think that may actually be more of a lawyer question, and the governing folks at the Water Development Board, I'm not sure how if it was all approved and it passed its challenges, how it could roll out for Lone Star. I have no idea.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that question is because Lone Star's board, from what I understand, went from an appointed board to a elected board, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that elected board follows the election laws that are involved. Just like as a county commissioner, I'm involved in a lot of open records requests and things of that nature. I know you guys are too, but I mean, there's other laws that we as elected officials that pertain to us. And so I just wanted to make certain that I'm understanding that this is something that an elected board desired and voted to send to the GMA 14 for consideration, but it's not something that the GMA 14 is statutorily required to approve. It's just something we can take into consideration. Is that my understanding?
Right, Kurt, it's a proposal for the GMA from Lone Star. It's a proposed resolution from Lone Star.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that is that I understand there's probably a desire for each member of the GMA to handle their community as they see fit, as they have boards for each of those areas. This group right here creates a collective thought process because of the aquifers, correct? Because we share those aquifers, right? I mean, the whole goal is and don't take this the wrong way, to play nice together in the sandbox, right? Like our whole goal is we don't have an infinite amount of water, so we all have interest in these aquifers. So therefore, we all have an interest in what Lone Star does, while we do not want to mandate them to do what they want to do, right? Is that where we're having the differences? Because look, we've been involved in this for a while. I can remember when we were still meeting in person and we were having these discussions, guys. So I just want to make sure I'm landing on what the gist of what we're doing is. And am I anywhere in the ballpark of that?
I'm not sure how best to answer that. That was kind of a lot there.
Okay.
We have proposals in front of us.
Okay.
We can choose one of them. We can choose none of them. We can choose
Okay.
something else. Something
Could
needs to
we
be
ask
chosen.
Larry French to answer that question for him?
There you go, Larry.
Is he available?
Yeah, I can at least maybe provide some commentary. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, but what you're doing today is considering proposals for regional desired future conditions. Those are proposals, and it does not have to be a unanimous decision. It has to be they're adopted or proposed by a 2/3 vote of the districts who participate. There have been other GMAs where it has not been unanimous. So that would not be unusual or unheard of if a vote is not unanimous. But then the proposed DFCs go back to the individual districts where you'll each hold a a public hearing, have at least a 90-day comment period where folks can then weigh in on those DFCs as they apply to the specific district. And then the district representatives will come back together after that time period is up, sometime probably in the late summer or fall, probably on that time period, and then vote. There could be an opportunity to make adjustments to those DFCs that were proposed based on comments heard. Then the district representatives will vote again and adopt final DFCs for the GMA 14. Then those final DFCs, as they apply to each individual district, will then go back and be adopted by each individual district, those DFCs that apply to the individual district. So that's the process. In terms of enforcement, the Water Development Board has no role in that. That would be if there is a concern or complaint by constituents within a district, that pathway would likely go through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They have a process called a petition of inquiry. So Water Development Board has no, it's just a technical agency. We have no, authority to enforce or regulate. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but that's kind of the process as it's laid out.
Well, I appreciate that because that clarified a lot for me because I believe what I did is I forgot how the process worked. We've been working on these DFCs and the and things so long that I kind of forgot the process. So I appreciate that, and that gives me a lot of clarity to what we're doing here today. So thank you.
Can I ask you one more thing, Larry?
Sure.
Can LSGCD decide which metrics are relevant to their own district?
Again, that's probably more of a lawyer question, but that's they'll have to take the proposed DFCs that apply to their district once they're voted on as a whole, and then have a public hearing on that. So ultimately, the ones that are the DFCs that are decided would be adopted by the district way down at the end of the process for them to be effective. And if and that's a question of probably it involves some legal authority and perhaps the TCEQ on if there was a difference between DFCs that were voted on by the GMA districts versus if there was a deviation with what an individual district wants to do. That's another legal question. I'm not sure if that's happened yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martin, may I add one comment, both in response to Beverly and Kirk's questions?
Sure.
So just to clarify what happens in the process, and Larry did a great job there. The DFCs that are adopted through this process, they are required to flow into the management plan of each of the GCDs and then the rules. So the management plan and the rules have to be consistent with the DFCs that are adopted through this process. So okay. That's the flow down.
Thank you, Wade.
Mr. Martin, I did want to note that Greg Ellis has just raised his hand.
Mr. Ellis, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine this morning, thank you. If it'd be helpful, I'd like to offer my legal opinion on the question that was just raised.
Sure.
If you're okay with that.
Yes.
Please do.
The desired future condition represents a GMA-wide goal over the next 50 years. How each district chooses to meet those goals is up to each individual district and is set through their management plans and then eventually their rules and the permits they issue. Every district has the right and the duty to decide how to meet those goals and whether those goals are relevant to that particular district. There are, based on the model runs we have seen, there are several districts here that will meet the 70% drawdown level long before they reach a foot of subsidence. At the same time, there are other areas where the subsidence metric will be the first thing met long before they get to 70% of drawdown. I think Brazoria County is one of those. The management plan should be drawn up in a way that they explain exactly how they're going to manage to meet those goals. And if the more relevant goal is subsidence, then they need to make that their focus. If the 70% drawdown is primary, then they need to make that their focus. But I still think that there's nothing in the DFC process that dictates to any district how they're to manage within their district. So I hope that answers Kirk's question and Beverly's question. I'll be able to answer any other questions that come up if it's helpful.
No, look, everybody that's explained something today has really helped me a lot. I just needed, maybe it was just a refresher course, but I just needed to hear that.
And so the GMA can decide for the GCDs to adopt the applicable metrics. Is that it? I think that's kind of what I was hearing Greg say. Is that?
The GCD in its management plan has to determine of these goals, how they're going to achieve the goals. If you can achieve the goal entirely by meeting your 70% drawdown level without ever considering or worrying about the subsidence metric, then that's what your management plan needs to do. On the other hand, if you're going to be seeing excessive subsidence before you reach that 70% level or 80% level, I don't want to jump the gun on what gets adopted here today, then you need to have subsidence be the focus of your management plan. But it's up to each individual district exactly how they're going to implement these desired future conditions. You will have to discuss the desired future conditions in your management plan and how you're planning on meeting them. But I would think that if you're going to be hitting subsidence metric before you get to the 70%, your management plan should say the 70% is not the issue here. The subsidence goal is the issue here.
Right, the applicable one. And again, we're not at that, agenda item yet, but I'm hopeful that that's the resolution that Lone Star is proposing, that's the goal, is that it's applicable to each district chooses what's applicable to them. And I can lay that out a little bit later.
John, it's Gary. Not that I don't love talking about legal stuff, but I'd like to switch to accounting if it's okay. I have an accounting question. Mike, I got the invoice and sent you a check to pay off the remainder of our agreement this week. It's in the mail. I expect my green stamps in return, but my question is, are we through paying for everything for this round, or should I be budgeting or expecting more expenses to come?
Based on the original scope of work and everybody's interlocal agreement, our expectation is that the funds are available to get us through this round of planning, including the explanatory reporting and all that. So I think everyone is good for this round, and then we'll of course once the hammer's dropped on this, then we start over again. But for this round, I think everybody's good to go.
Good, thank you.
Okay,
Hey,
anybody need, go ahead.
John, just Mike mentioned explanatory report. Is now an okay time for Wade to maybe give us kind of a quick update and next steps? Is now an okay time to hear that update?
I think so.
Mr. Martin, this is Tina. I did want to note that Stacy Reese has her hand raised.
Miss Reese, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask Greg a question based on his comment. And I agree with what Greg was saying about sort of the legal things. Greg, do you believe that the resolution that Lone Star proposed is consistent with what you just stated?
John, I'm waiting for you to say something.
Is this the right forum for these types of back and forth on the legal side of things?
Yeah, I don't know that we should join into a debate. I will say that I have reviewed the resolution that Sam sent out about 11 o'clock last night. I think that resolution is consistent with what I just said. I can't remember which paragraph it is, but there's a specific paragraph that says each groundwater conservation district has to determine how they're going to implement these desired future conditions and which ones are relevant to their situation. And I believe that's a fair statement of the law.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate the clarification. I thought we were on the same page, but just want to make sure that we were. So thank you.
Moving along, anybody else need some time to back and focus on general items here in number 7 before we move along to item 8?
John, would you like me to address Samantha's question?
What was Sam's question?
It was related to the explanatory report and an
Okay.
update.
Oh, yes.
So there are a few sections that are up on the Dropbox that have been available for people to review related to the explanatory report. There are many sections of the explanatory report that are specific to the desired future conditions that are adopted through this process. And so I have not uploaded those sections yet because we're still deciding on what those exactly are. But as soon as the decision's made to propose DFCs, those will be updated and available for everyone to review and edit and contribute to.
Okay.
Okay, but we don't have any deadlines or anything that we owe you right now as far as comments, or just as they come, we can put them in there.
Yes.
Okay.
John, for the purposes of discussion and ensuring that we get the full weight of the interlocal participants' voices in this discussion, I'd like to make a motion to pinpoint some of our discussion and focus it a little bit more. So I would make a motion that the GMA 14 propose the 70% average available drawdown, 1 foot additional average subsidence, 30,000 acre feet pumping limit, and with the Run D pumping criteria for our proposed DFCs, to focus that discussion on that at this point.
So you're making a motion to just specifically discuss it to get our participants' opinions on it, not actually making the motion to approve it at this point. Is that what you're saying?
The action would be basically only within this. It would not be reflective of, we'd still have to do a whole separate motion in number 8 for the GCDs.
I don't know that we need a motion to do that.
The purpose of the motion is to focus conversation on one alternative only. We can make several motions to go through the 3 of them, but I think we need to go through and have the specific discussions on each one of them, whether how it pertains to the proposed resolutions that have been put together or as a whole, but to focus conversation on one proposal at a time. That's my purpose in this.
Anybody want to second that motion for that? Not hearing one, why don't we just ask the subsidence districts what they think of the 70% Run D model and the other participants. Sorry, Kat. I should not leave the individual counties out. Pudge and Kirk as well in this conversation. Mr. Turco, thoughts?
Sure, and I feel like we've talked about this a lot. And I feel a lot that's been said in the past, those things haven't changed. You know, when we first started down the road of Run D, it was made clear then that the additional pumpage in the Jasper and Montgomery County that Montgomery County was proposing actually incurred larger drawdowns in Harris County. Those things aren't any different now than they were then. You know, this adding additional groundwater in places is, from a management perspective, is certainly going to have impacts. From a planning perspective, which is where the GMA is, I mean, having that involved on the planning side, there is growth in areas, and there's going to be additional water used, and the trick in doing that is how it's going to be managed at the local level. Subsidence is an issue in our region, obviously, and I think, and from our perspective, from the Paris-Galveston Subsidence District, the Run-D model has some limitations because it does exploit a known limitation in the model. We're gonna have a new model and coming out next year anyway, that's gonna be used in the next round of planning. My recommendation would be to stick with the model of record that's currently being the model record for the Water Development Board and use that model run. Whether it's 70% or 80% from a planning perspective, I don't know if that really matters all that much. Certainly the subsidence metric is an important one for our region. Subsidence is an issue. It's an issue not only in Harrison, Galveston, and Fort Bend County, but it's an issue in the counties all around the Gulf Coast. So I think it's an important thing to have in there, if for no other reason than to make sure that it's addressed as part of the management strategy for each of the districts. You know, like was said earlier, you know, if the 70% drawdown, maintaining that keeps you out of that 1 foot on average across the county, then that can be addressed pretty easily. I know there's been mention of monitoring and all that. I think we've talked about that enough and shown enough information and enough data to make it very clear to everyone who's watched this issue to know that, yes, it can be monitored. Yes, we are monitoring it. And there are multiple methods to do it. And to suggest to suggest the contrary is does not fully it's not looking at the data in a very genuine way. There's a reason why the Subsidence District put a PAM site in southern Montgomery County back in 2000, because that's where the action was. And that monitoring has continued throughout that period of record, and it needs to continue all around the area as growth develops down these major arteries. So monitoring is available. There's more than just GPS sites. There's INSAR, other things. So I think we've gone through that road. Like I said, whether it's 70 or 80%, I don't know if that really matters from a planning perspective. Having subsidence as part of that planning tool, from my perspective, is an important part of the puzzle.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that because this is Kirk Hanneth. I would agree with that because I think that what we've done is we've allowed ourselves to be educated way more. Originally, I was probably one of the ones that said, it's not going to hurt for us to get more data. Now we have so much data, it almost gets confusing for someone like me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, right? So I would definitely agree with Mr. Mike there about having subsidence as part of it for some of these counties is very important. And they don't have subsidence districts for no reason. They obviously are monitoring it. So thank you for those comments.
Thanks, Kurt. Mr. Wilcox, anything to add? Can you hear us, Mr. Wilcox? I think you may have froze up there. How about Mr. Thompson? Anything?
Well, I reiterate the same comments that Mike said. Even with Run D, it was showing that we'd have more drawdowns in Fort Bend County than we're going to see in Montgomery County. So I would agree with everything that Mike said.
So, John, I'd like to say, while I appreciate all the comments from the stakeholders and the non-voting GMA members, I think there's a few bigger things at hand. It's not so much about the monitoring. I think it's about allowing the districts the ability, the GCDs, to implement and manage based on applicable metrics. in their counties. I think that is a very important part of what we do as GCDs. And, you know, this GMA in general. So again, appreciate the comments. You know, I think that Lone Star is a little bit different, and when I lay out our resolution, I can explain more, but you know, we've got a petition that's still out there that has not been wrapped up. We are different than any of the other GCDs right now, you know, and anything that anyone's gone through. So, but again, I'll continue in a bit when we move on to the next agenda item.
How about, I know kind of Zach was looking at getting input from y'all on all of our potential choices today. Does anybody want to, and I might kind of touched on that, it's just important that there be a subsidence metric included. Does anybody else have any other comments on the other models that we are considering, including the proposal by Lone Star? Okay. Not hearing anything. Shall we move along to item 8, or does anybody need to discuss any other items of general discussion here in 7 before we move along to the big item of the day?
Hey, John, can I make one additional comment?
Sure.
I want to thank member GCDs and our colleagues in Washington and Chambers County for you know, being a part of this interlocal agreement and working together. You know, we all have different aspects of looking at this, and GMA 14 is unique in that regard. And we appreciate the collaboration and being allowed to sit here with you and work with you through these regional issues. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for working in that collaborative nature.
Agree.
Well, and I appreciate the ability to have a voice at the table because we do not have a district. So, look, that's a two-way thing, and I appreciate all the work that's been done and all the effort that's been put into this because, as I noted in a speech yesterday, we have 29.7 million people in Texas and growing daily. Water is an issue. Groundwater is an issue. If anyone thinks it's not, they're not on the third rock from the sun. So we just need to be careful on how we manage it for the future.
Thanks, Kirk.
As a quick and final comment on this section before we get into the next one. Monday, Bluebonnet did somewhat respond and provide an outline of report of how Bluebonnet would approach and implement the DFCs for the rest of the GMA's kind of knowledge and understanding in light of previous meetings, communication, and a lot of this continued communication on, you know, how we would approach, you know, implement having one or the other and how we would integrate them all into one cohesive planning and management and ultimately policy decisions. And again, just wanted to mention and make note of that for the record.
Exactly. He made all the files associated with that report available in the Dropbox folder for as well. Okay. GMA 14 interlocal meeting will be adjourned, and the meeting of the GMA 14 district representatives will reconvene. Agenda item number 8.
John, this is Gary. I'd like to start if it's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to start with making a motion to adopt resolution 2021-49. It's in your Dropbox. The file name of it is resolution 70 Hagam. It's supporting the multimetric simulated model of a 70% remaining available drawdown, the 1 foot of additional subsidence, and no more than 30,000 acre-feet increase using the Hagam model. That's one.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
A second.
Was that Miss Beverly?
Yes.
Discussion. I'll start it.
To know the next
For
steps as far
quick conversation, that's the resolution that was part of the motion is John's original.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I would like to chime in. I think that of the models we've seen, it's probably the most centrist of them. It's going to be the one, in my opinion, where not everybody, essentially nobody ends up happy. And from everything you hear and see on TV, it's when that happens, it's usually probably one of the better options. So I would, I'm for that model myself. Anybody else have comments on that before we consider it for a vote?
Well, I'd just like to know the proper protocol for making a separate motion. I mean, obviously we have to adjourn this, but I do have, I as Lone Star's representative, we do have quite a few issues with that because as it's mentioned and as I tried to lay out in our proposed resolution, that neither of those are part of the approved resolution that was part of our DFC petition that was approved by my previous board and the protestants. And so, I can tell you right now, I will unfortunately have to oppose that. I think it should be laid out so that each GCD is able to adopt the applicable metrics for their counties. I think that is critical in what we're doing. And I do not believe that the resolution that is under the motion right now does that or allows for that.
Any other comments before I call for a vote on it?
I would just say in response to that, I think 36108 D4 covers that applicability of DFC adoptions. And again, when we get past this motion, if you would like to make a second motion, and then we can kind of go from there and see what happens with that one, we can handle that one. But again, for the purposes of this motion, we have to keep it to this. The other thing that I would say is what we're proposing and what's on the table for proposing is just the 70% 1 foot HAGM as the criteria. If there's issues with the language in the resolution, we're not adopting the resolution at this time. We still have 6-7 months to finagle the language on that side. All we're doing today is proposing the GAM metrics to propose. That's it.
I do believe that resolution specifically says just proposed. So the resolution is relevant, and I believe it also includes the 30,000 foot metric, or not necessarily metric, but maximum. I think that's what Gary wanted included as well.
Yes, please.
Right, but it also makes the 1 foot applicable to all counties. Is that correct?
Yes. A GMA-wide DFC.
I would like, if possible, I'd like to modify. I know the motion on the table is for the one that's limited, but I would be interested in discussing with my fellow GCDs the potential to modify the language in the resolution that's under the motion to allow for some of the language from my proposed resolution to be, almost combine them in a way, I guess, is one way of looking at it.
That's not my proposal. I'd like to propose it as it's written currently. I don't want to modify my proposal. You guys want to shoot my proposal down and rediscuss it? That's fine.
I agree with Gary.
Okay, well, time for a vote on that motion then, I think. Mr. Ashmore, yay or nay on your motion? I'll assume yay.
Yay.
Mr. Holland.
Yay.
Ms. Hopkins,
Yay.
myself, yay. So it appears that we have adopted proposed DFCs this afternoon.
And I would like to make a separate motion, please.
And for clarification, Ms. Ryder did vote no, correct?
Correct. I wasn't asked, but yes, correct.
My apologies, Sam.
Sorry, guys. I'm really trying to work here with everyone. Trying.
What would your resolution be, Ms. Ritter?
Well, I wanted to. I'm sorry.
You requested, you asked that you wanted to make another motion.
Yes, I do. What I wanted to say is the resolution that was sent late last night and uploaded to the Dropbox. It did simplify the language from a previous resolution that I sent, removing some unnecessary language. I do think that the proposed DFC statements are very similar, but what my hope is that the resolution that you have in front of you, it allows for a workable solution for all of us. It fixes some of the issues from the last round's DFC petition, while acknowledging that there are different limiting factors and varying aquifer conditions. And we're hoping that the GCDs will consider it because I think it's, again, as I've said before, it's very critical that each GCD is able to manage to the applicable DFC metric that works best for their county. And as you all know, the subsidence component, the subsidence metric is not a limiting factor for all of our counties. And therefore my board took action. They did not feel as though, because that was the case, that they wanted to, that they could support a 1 foot average subsidence metric in our DFC statement, because it is not the limiting factor. Utilizing the RUND well file is what is what is listed. The 70% available remaining drawdown using the RUND well file is what is listed, because again, it's critical to address the issues from the successful petition. And it was part, as I said earlier, it was part of the approved resolution that came out of that petition, and that is still hanging out there. That's what we still need to resolve. We believe that our resolution also, it brings about this common reservoir approach that was utilized during this round. And again, we're very thankful to the GMA reps for considering that. I think that the biggest stride that we made was that we started with aquifer conditions, and that they can be measured independent of a model across the GMA. We identified the applicable metrics in the aquifers and are going to be using those as applicable in our counties. It talks about the demand. It allows for us to look at the demand for each of our counties. And for Lone Star, the 70% RUND, that is applicable as far as the regional water plan and our demand for our county. It doesn't affect any other counties. It's critical for us to resolve the petition, and it's justified based on the demand. I do feel as though it also, I think we heard from one protestant today. I heard from some at my special meeting, that it doesn't seem like they're gonna necessarily petition if the RUND option is selected. And again, that's why it's laid out in the proposed resolution. We have the 70% remaining available drawdown using the RUND file. And then we have the option, ultimately, and I'm looking at it right now, we have the option to allow for counties who would like to impose the 1 foot average subsidence metric. They have that option should they choose to do so. So the resolution that's laid out in front of you that I sent this morning, last night, I don't know what it's called in the Dropbox, and we're open to discussing, but it calls for, as it says in here, it calls for the counties within GMA 14 to follow no less than 70% median available drawdown remaining in 2080 for those counties where this metric is a limiting factor. and no more than 1 foot additional average subsidence between 2009 and 2080 for those counties where this metric is a limiting factor. Each member district can then adopt applicable metrics as appropriate, consistent with the model run using the multiple metric simulation, and shall monitor and measure achievement as appropriate. I'd love to discuss this one further, but I would like to make a motion to approve the submitted resolution and propose the DFCs as stated in this resolution from Lone Star.
So that's a resolution you just, excuse me, a resolution, a motion you just made?
Correct.
Do we have a second for Ms. Ritter's motion?
For quick clarification on the motion, so I make sure and jot it down correctly. Your motion is for the version that you sent out at 11 o'clock last night, that the clean version is 3 pages, correct? As you
Correct.
Stated.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Just making sure that we're on the same page, and I will second that.
It's a simplified, yes, resolution.
Yes, okay, this is the simplified, not the one that you had sent out
Correct.
earlier. Okay,
Yeah.
I will second that motion.
Mr. Oliver, I see your hand up.
I'd like to make a point of clarification that Samantha may want to incorporate. So I reviewed briefly the resolution that was sent out last night, and I don't see a reference to the base well file, the run D option that was included in the other form resolutions. And so I think for clarity's sake that should be included in there, in addition to the 30,000 acre feet per year above the maximum demand in the state water plan, inclusion for this to be clear.
Yes, meaning that it's
and Wade,
that
was my purpose in seconding this, for discussion of what Sam laid out is not what's in this resolution.
Okay, well, I'll get out of the way.
I appreciate the clarification and bringing that up, but what Sam said and what she laid out for what's actually physically in the resolution, there is no reference to Run D. So if Run D was the crux of all this, that's not there. The comments that, Run D and the petition, any messing with the model for Montgomery County doesn't impact anybody else is also false. But again, I did want to that's part of why I wanted to make sure that this one document, the simplified version, is what we're talking about. Because in that, the only references in there are the 70% and 1 foot. There's no reference to the model run or any clarification in it. So that's what we are talking about at this moment.
I apologize. And it looks like that may have been just an error on my part when I was doing this, but I would like to modify the motion to make sure that the resolution that was submitted like at 11 o'clock last night, it should reference the HAGM using the Run D population distribution, the 70% HAGM using the Run D population distribution as the available drawdown.
And for the sake of continued discussion on this, I will continue to maintain my second of the motion as amended.
Any discussion on Ms. Ritter's motion? Call for a vote on Ms. Ritter's motion. Hearing nobody making any comments or asking any questions. Mr. Ashmore, yay or nay?
I will vote nay.
Mr. Holland?
I vote against the motion A because it was submitted at the, well, actually, the heck with that. I vote in favor of the motion, even though I do take extreme issue with the fact that this was submitted to us the day before, outside of the 11 o'clock hour, after we were specifically asked at the last meeting repeatedly, even if it's in draft form, please send us something to consider in due diligence and time, and not less than 24 hours before the meeting. So I will vote in favor of the motion.
Ms. Hopkins,
Nay.
Ms. Ritter,
Yay.
and I will have to go with a nay myself, having only recently seen it, even if I was inclined to. A legal counsel on my board has not seen that motion, and so I will have to decline voting for it as well. So that
I would
motion-
like to make another motion. And I would like to see if there is an interest in Lone Star's proposed resolution with the 70% remaining available drawdown with using the 2016 file.
Without the subsidence metric?
Well, it's not without, it's just applicable to those who choose for it to be applicable to, or for those who choose to implement and for which it is applicable. It's still in there.
Anybody like to second that motion Ms. Ritter just put out?
Again, note taker needs more clarification. So your
It would be
motion
as
is
written,
to adopt the Lone Star simplified resolution language with the HAGM versus the Run D.
Correct.
So basically as it's currently written.
Correct, as it's currently written.
Okay.
Discussion? Mr. Ashmore.
I will vote no because I haven't had time to understand it or study it. And at this point, I would say no.
Mr. Holland.
Do we have a second on the motion or are we just asking about it right now?
So did I get ahead of myself?
Sorry, in my clarification,
I guess I assumed, my assumption was when you began talking again.
I'll second it again for the purposes of discussion and continuing with the line we're on. Okay,
so we have
now back to what you were asking me on, where my vote was. I think that we have the ability to work on the language between now and the final adoption. It still supports the multiple metric approach as dictated and outlined in our implementation process. We're fully supportive of any of the three. And so I will again vote in favor of it.
Ms. Hopkins.
I'm a little bit confused. Is this in addition to Gary's motion or replace it?
This is a separate motion to discuss to consider the resolution Lone Star provided this morning as it's written, which is based on the HAGM standard model and not the Run D model. But also removes or allows each district to consider what metrics they want to monitor as opposed to being it across the board.
I didn't hear you very well, John.
Not a problem. I just had a little warning that popped up that said my internet had slowed there for a moment.
Something was on my screen too, and I couldn't hear you well.
Am I coming through okay right now?
Can you speak up a little louder and explain that again to me?
Okay. Her motion is for the resolution that she provided last evening as it's written, which is based on the HAGM model and not the Run D model, and provides for the ability for each district to consider what metrics they need to monitor to meet the DFC.
I'm going to vote nay.
Ms. Ritter?
Yay.
And I will go with nay as well.
Okay, I would like to make another motion that we approve two different proposals. The resolution I just laid out, and that was emailed to y'all, as well as Gary's resolution. Is that something? And I don't know that it's not allowed, that, you know, I don't know if there's a limit on the number of proposals, but given that what I'm hearing is maybe there wasn't enough time to review. And so I'd like to allow for that time and put it out, put both of them, allow for all of us to put both of them out for public comment.
We have a motion. Do you need to get notes down on that, Zach?
Since there's kind of a question mark in there, yes, I need more clarification. But I also may need to ask Mr. French if we can propose two DFCs, since that's kind of what Sam laid out as proposing two different DFCs. I'm not sure that works under Chapter 36 of what we're tasked with doing, of proposing a DFC for comment. I think it has to be a singular.
I'm reluctant to weigh on legal matters, but that I don't see in Chapter 36 a provision for all the competing proposals to be made from a GMA. I mean, the language, as I recall, and I don't have it in front of me, but it seems to me it's a proposal from the district representatives in the GMA. So,
right. So could it be a proposal with two different options, DFC statement options?
I think that starts bifurcating the issue and basically turns in, or at least the perception of two competing DFCs. Now, again, I'm still supportive of changing and altering. We can continue to have this this language on the resolution change for final adoption. If the language in the resolution is the only thing keeping and withholding support, which again, I understand your board direction of only supporting what y'all proposed. But when we have final adoption, that final resolution is what will hold. And we have until we finally adopt at the end of the year to hash out more of this language, instead of less than 24 hours or 9 hours to consider it. So if it's just a language issue that you're trying to get around in your current motion, I think we still have the opportunity to clean that up moving forward.
Can I ask Larry just another question on this? Is there a need for a resolution? Is that a requirement in Chapter 36?
I don't recall if the word resolution is made, but they are proposed DFCs.
Right.
And like I think Zach had mentioned, that has to be, it would be something that then goes out to the public within each district. And when you reconvene after the public comment period, you may, based on the public comment and further discussion and consideration, you as a group of district representatives may finally adopt a DFC statement that is very much unlike what you're currently proposing. It does not have to be the same language or the same DFCs, because you will have had public input and commentary and more time, et cetera, to consider that. So, so you may want to keep that in mind.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, the resolution is a requirement of the final adoption by resolution. It is not tied
it's not required at this stage.
Correct.
For our purposes at the Water Development Board, Zach is correct. We would need very tight language that would enable our groundwater modeling group to prepare modeled available groundwater according to the exact wording and constraints that are provided in the final adoption. We don't have any role or action to take on a proposed DFC at this point. So we do need the resolution for the final adoption. We would not be acting on anything at this point.
So based on that, I'd like to modify the motion.
Hang on. I got a hand in the audience up that's been trying to get in. Greg?
Okay, again, I hate to intrude, but we're banning about legal questions, so I wanted to try and answer from my legal viewpoint. You may get opposed legal viewpoints, you usually do. One, I don't think you have to adopt a resolution to propose desired future conditions. The proposal that comes out needs to be clear enough that people have enough information that they can provide comment to during the public comment period. That in no way prevents anybody from during the public comment period suggesting that you need to adopt a different desired future condition than the one that was proposed. In fact, that's the entire purpose of the public comment period, is to hear from the public as to what they think you should do, not just yay or nay on what you have proposed. I also think that it would be perfectly valid if you choose to propose 2 different DFCs to get public comments on both. That may double the amount of work you have to do, and that's a consideration. And again, the fact that you didn't propose a specific metric does not prevent anybody from commenting that you should adopt a different metric. As Larry pointed out, when this is all over, you're going to have to put together a summary of the comments you received, come back as a group, and make a final decision on which DFCs you're going to adopt. Now, what I don't know, and I don't think any lawyer can tell you this, if you don't adopt the one that was proposed, or you make substantial changes to the one that was proposed, you may need to go back out for additional public comment. That's true for rulemaking. I don't know that it's true for desired future conditions. I would hate to think that your hands are so tied after proposing that you only get an up or down vote when it's all over. The clear intent of the legislation is to allow you to make changes to what was proposed at the end of the public comment process. So I believe it's justifiable and legally defensible to make changes to the proposed DFC and adopt the final DFC without having to go back out for additional public comment. I hope that helps.
Not at all.
Okay. So
Wade,
currently
did
the
you have
motion on
something
the,
to add right quick?
yeah, go ahead, Zach.
Wade?
No, Greg touched on a comment that I was going to make, so I'm done.
Mr. Ritter, you were going to propose another motion?
Right, so the motion on the table is 2 resolutions, which if I'm understanding Greg right, that can happen. Or it sounds like from a legal standpoint, he doesn't see any reason why that couldn't happen. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to modify the motion to approve 70% 1-foot average subsidence with no resolution. So not approve any resolution, but approve the statement.
Do we have a second for Ms. Ritter's motion?
And John, if Stacy, is she available with her to speak on what Greg was saying?
She has not raised her hand, but if you think you need her input.
Yeah, I'd like to just confirm before it goes further.
Okay.
May I make a very brief comment as it relates to this while we wait on that? So the 90-day public comment period starts when the proposed desired future conditions are mailed to each of the GCDs from the GMA. So if there is no resolution, there does need to be something else that clearly describes what the proposed DFCs are that is then mailed to each of you. That's it.
Thank you, Wade. Ms. Reese, you there? There you go.
I am. I had my hand raised. Maybe something is wrong with my webinar panel. It looked raised to me, but thank you for letting me chime in real quick. So I agree with what Greg said, that we don't have to have a resolution, that you can take, have 2 proposals back for hearing. I agree that the statute is unclear as to whether you have to then go back and have another hearing if you end up revising the DFC. I think the intent is that you can make revisions without another hearing, but out of an abundance of caution, if you propose multiple considerations for public hearing, then there's definitely no violation if you end up revising it to one of those proposals. So that's my 2 cents, and I agree with what Greg has been saying. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, we still have that motion that needs a second.
And clarification.
And
So the motion on the table is to approve a 70% HAGM 1 foot, 30,000 acre foot pumping cap. Correct?
Yes, with no resolution. Like,
Isn't that what we did approve, just minus a resolution?
yes, I believe that was Gary's, yes.
Again, for purposes of continuing conversation and discussion, I will second it.
Thank you, Zach. Any
And
discussion?
for quick discussion, to Wade's point, as far as kind of being clear, as far as the kind of the formatting, the language, and everything else, would it basically be just a copy and paste of what you've presented and provided, Wade, as far as that that language, that little paragraph that you've provided in the past? And I guess that's also a clarification for Sam, if that would be acceptable.
So it is a clarification to Sam, but that is also the same blurb of language with the clarification defining available drawdown that is in the first resolution that was proposed.
Correct.
Any other discussion? I'm not sure I understand the purpose of doing it in that manner. What would be the difference if it's in resolution form or not? What's your thinking?
At this point in my opinion, based on the fact that we all have to post it in all of the different forms, newspapers, websites, counties, everything else, the resolution is how many pages? And the statement itself that we're actually considering is very short. So in my opinion, we can subvert and get away from the derailed comments about, your resolution versus my resolution, my language versus your language, and get to the heart of this discussion. And what our purpose here today was to actually propose a DFC statement. And just boiling it down to the statement only. Again, we've got 6 months or better to hammer out what the resolution says, since that's clearly a sticking point and what's getting to it. At least in this one would stand a potential chance of having a unanimous support versus a 4-1. But we have a way forward that has already been proposed and approved as is. I think this would just be a different, simpler way of potentially doing it, to also show full unanimous support across all votes.
Mr. Ashmore, what do you think? Or would you be okay with your motion being circumvented by essentially adopting the same thing without all the resolution language included in it?
Let me ask some questions.
Sure.
The statement comes back, we send it out to local public hearings, we take comments, my board decides, and then we come back here and form a new resolution again in the future, correct? We're back to where we are today, in the future, right? Somebody say
After
yes.
public comments, right?
Okay, so then when we decide where we're at today again for a resolution, does it come back for more public hearings and decisions? It's done at that point?
I think today.
That's my understanding.
My understanding is right now, instead of being so formal as to have it in resolution form, we're just going to propose for adoption the DFCs that include the 70% remaining, the 1 foot additional drawdown, the 30% maximum based on the HAGA model, correct? Just not in resolution form. When we go through all the public comment stuff, and actually I kind of like the fact that Zach pointed out the whole lot less number of words that will be in newspapers and on websites if we were to do it this way. However, when it does come back after the public comments, we bring our reports back, we discuss. At that time, we have to be more formal about it and likely put it in a resolution.
And okay, good. Does this meet there's a deadline for the end of this month. Does this meet that deadline doing it this way?
This would be adopting proposed DFCs, yes. Correct, Larry? You want to back you? It's just not in resolution form like you said earlier, did not need to be, right?
Yeah, the law says that you vote on proposing DFCs. That's the language I recall it. So what you're considering now would satisfy that by May 1st.
Okay.
All right. I'm ready for a vote when anybody else is.
Questions from anybody else on that, Ms. Beverly? Any questions? We did get a second on that from Zach, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ashmore, what do you think?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. Ritter?
Yes.
And I can go along with that one as well.
Who actually crafts this statement to give to us so we can start public hearing time? Is that you, Zach?
Oh, no, I think that's you, Gary.
No.
Wade,
I'll
who
make a
crafts?
motion to have Gary take care of that for us. Second? Anybody?
It'll be in crayon.
Move by acclamation.
It'll be in crayon, I guarantee. I speak Mandarin, so I'll make it in Mandarin as well.
Well.
But I think that Wade would help kind of make sure that that's in that clean.
Please.
I'm happy to do it. I understand the desire to be short in language as compared to the resolution. I'm let all of you know up front that my plan would be to at least include enough information so that it is specific about what it does and does not include. And so that is longer than a couple of sentences, but we'll try to keep it slow.
Still not multiple pages, so I'm appreciative.
That's brilliant.
Hey guys, at the risk of just I'm curious as to if I might, we're still in a discussion item, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're still on I.
Okay. I'm curious as to I'd like to know from each of y'all, because we haven't had the ability to talk outside of this meeting, if there is a specific reason why you cannot support the Run D. I'd like to be able to report back to my board. the Run D option.
This is Gary. I'd be happy to take some time and write it down for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Send it.
Absolutely. Or we can, yeah, or I'll give you a call. Maybe we can.
I gotta talk to the board first.
Okay. Beverly?
Yes,
You're
same.
the same? Okay. Okay. Zach and John, do y'all have any, do y'all need to talk to your boards as well?
No, I've made it very clear from the get-go that I
Sure.
support all three of them. And again, my report that was based on the 71 and Run D kind of as the most extreme or highest impact side of things reflects that, again, Bluebonnet is willing and capable of implementing any of the three options.
Okay.
I'm essentially in the same place.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. And Beverly and Gary, I'll kind of get with y'all and we can, because I am interested in knowing a little bit more. And then I look forward to continuing to work with the group and hopefully after these lovely public hearings, see if we can continue to agree. Find a compromise that works for everyone.
Moving along, anybody have anything else for agenda item number 8? Hearing none. Agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding the next meeting date, location, and agenda item. I'm gonna guess location's probably a bit early to call. We may be able to meet in person next time. Timeline, we're looking at least 3 months out. It'll probably be mid next week before we get that proposed DFC mailed to the group for that 90 days to start. That puts us 1, 2, 3 mid-July at the earliest, right? I'm thinking pushing it back further than that because summer's kind of crazy. I plan on taking time off. We have the tag meeting, have a conference in there. How about early or mid-October? Pros, cons?
If necessary, if we needed to get together in between some of that, we could do that, right? But for purposes of getting through the public comment, that's what you're trying to schedule, is that
correct? Our first meeting after that, yeah.
Okay.
It's like saying basically all we're doing is putting a placeholder on a date.
Right. It just seems so far when when you hear October.
In September, we got the end of September, end of August, September is the tag meeting. So first week of September on probably works as well.
Well, the first week of September is the groundwater summit, but if we were to look at the last week of September and continue to meet at the end of the months, that may be a good just ride in for the time being.
Cool. 22nd September. Anything going on?
John, I apologize to everyone, but I'm out of the country September 22nd through the 28th. So I'll be overseas.
So we need to set the meeting for the 29th?
I'm fine with the 20th. I'll have everything prepared.
21st.
Lord willing, I'll have it ready by then. So I'd be okay with after the 28th.
Hey, John, just so you know, the TWDB's, I think they have that Water for Texas is that the 27th through the 29th?
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that one.
Yeah, but the 30th would work, I think, on my calendar anyway. I mean, not that I have to be involved, but the 30th's open.
How about the first week of October? First Wednesday of October?
Gary's wide open.
I'm available.
Yes.
Kirk, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Are first Wednesdays bad for you?
No. I'm good on Wednesdays. It's Tuesdays that's a bad day for me.
Okay.
It was something first something of the week.
Mr. Turco, first Wednesday of October, the 6th work.
That'll work.
Cool.
Is your facility available if we want to do it in person?
I would be hopeful that it would be by that time.
Great.
Okey doke. Bad gum, we got somewhere today.
10 a.m.
That was the 6th. Did I?
Yes, October 6th. 10 a.m. start, or do we need to do it at 9 a.m.?
10 a.m. is fine.
10 a.m. is good with me. Okay, 10 a.m. October 6th. Agenda item number 10. Have a great weekend, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, y'all. Good weekend, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.